your ear holes.
And this lady taps me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and she goes, would you and Mr. Panett like to come drinking with us? And I look, and it's 8 other ladies. And I know you're thinking, this is one of those Dear Penthouse sort of stories. Let me shut that down by telling you they were all dressed like Matt Damon.
Was it at least Matt Damon in shorts?
It was almost adorable. She kind of like leaned in and she goes, just so you know, we're all lesbians. And I was like, okay.
So she's like, don't try nothing funny there, Mike Black.
Yeah, I was like, you're really knocking me over with this news, but
you're like, your secret is safe with me, Mr. Damon. I mean, yeah.
I hope you're not counting on this secret in town.
Everybody listen to Darren Carter. Yeah. We all know he's the party starter. So if you want to listen to a podcast for free, listen to a Pocket Party. Pocket Party. Durant.
And we're back. Thank you, everybody. Thanks again for listening to the Pocket Party podcast. Like I've told you before, outside of stand-up comedy, this is my favorite thing to do, podcasting and comedy. And they go hand in hand together. Dates out the gates. I want to thank, I got that from Sam Tripoli from Punch Drunk Sports. By the way, big shout out to Punch Drunk Sports having me on this week. Also, Comedy Film Nerds and the Yo 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 podcast with Martin Moreno. I did that last night. Man, what a blast. That was a all fun podcast, but Yo 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 podcast was right in my wheelhouse, man. Those guys rock. It was like a one-on-one type of interview. I think we almost did about 2 hours, but yeah, let's do some dates out the gates. October 4th, come see me in Solvang, California. If you're anywhere near the Santa Ynez Valley, I'll be in Solvang, California, October 4th at the Veterans Memorial Hall. October 19th and 20th, see me at the Dead Crow in North Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina. November 8th, 9th, and 10th, I'll be in Reno. November 23rd, 24th, I'll be at De Chico's in Clovis, California. The Friday and Saturday right after Thanksgiving. So get your tickets now. It will sell out. Also, December 14th, 15th, 16th, come see me at Tommy T's in Sacramento. And if you want to book me at a show, reach out to me or go to my agent. It's Stu Golfman at KMR Talent, or just hit me up directly on Twitter or Instagram, official Darren Carter, on Instagram, official Darren Carter, and we will work out the details. I want to do a shout out right now. By the way, thank you very much for all the wonderful iTunes reviews and the 5-star ratings. That really helps the podcast out. Next time you're at a party, take someone's iPhone and be like, you know what, can I see your phone real quick? And then just go to the podcast app and go to Darren Carter Pocket Party. Give me 5 stars and a quick review. All right. Let's read some of the reviews right now. All right. Big shout out to Francis Cronin. He writes, I had a really fun time being on this and listening to your other guests. Thanks for making it a fun listen and a really fun interview. Yeah, Frank Cronin was on, man. He's the guy from Ireland. He was in the Irish Army. He tells these crazy stories about camping and living in a tent for almost a year and just wonderful stuff, man. Other podcast episodes that you should probably check out are the one from last week with Gary Cannon. He's the audience warm-up for the Conan O'Brien show. And he's just a funny dude, man. And he tells all these great stories about working in television and making a living here in Hollywood. Let's Be Strippers. Did you listen to that one? Episode number 21. Hilarious, right? Peter Marr grew up in Omaha, and he was like, I'm going to be a stripper. Me and my buddy will make enough money, and then we'll move to L.A. So they went stripping about a half hour away from their local town. And they didn't quite make enough money to move to L.A. So they just said, you know what, let's just move to Boise. And or wherever they moved to, or he moved to. And then we had a dude that was a Chippendale stripper back in the 80s in New York City, and he's like, yeah, it was wonderful, man. You know, I used to make $500-600. I'd wear a trench coat and women would stick their head inside that trench coat like it was a voting booth. And all right, you can figure out the rest for yourself. But anyways, you go back, listen to some of these podcasts. If you're into boxing, check out two-time world champion Buddy McGirt. Wonderful, awesome stories talking about being a fighter from 82 to 97 and what it was like to do 80 boxing matches and win like most of them. All right, shout out right now to, once again from iTunes, another review. Soulless Ginger 27 writes, I always enjoy listening to this podcast while working out or taking my dog for a walk in the morning. The guests he chooses and his humble humor is a constant inspiration to keep moving in life and to keep it fun. Thanks for representing Fresno well and keep that party going. Much gratitude from one bald ginger to another. Yeah, my people. Sunscreen. Here's another one. Love a Funny Ginger by Princess Crystal. And for the S's on her princess, she has dollar signs. Nice. Princess Crystal in the house with that money. She writes, here's what she writes. Best podcast ever. Genuine and has great content. Definitely keeps you wanting more. Keep up the great work, Party Starter. Hope to see you in Fresno soon. Well, I hope so. Like I said, Friday and Saturday after Thanksgiving, I'll be at De Chico's in Clovis. Here's another one. Just met you outside the Haha Cafe Friday night. And I was doing a little... Oh, he's a comedian. I was doing a little set in the back patio while you were finishing yours on the main stage. Your podcast is great. Shout out his Instagram and Twitter. Oh yeah, I'll do that for you guys. You leave a review, I'll shout out your Twitter and your Instagram. Check him out, okay? On Instagram, he is known as @thebaldmancometh. On Twitter, @choice_windu. WINDU. Thank you, buddy. Another one. Funny and Poignant by Fast and Furious George. Like, that's kind of cool, like Curious George and Fast and Furious. The great thing about this podcast is that the conversations are unforced and natural, tipping between hilarious, serious, poignant, without any sense of Carter having to steer the dialogue in any direction. He's a natural interviewer, and it's great that because of his background as a comic, you get to sit in on conversations with fellow comedians who share insights on their craft and their life. Always a great listen. Never boring. Thank God. All right. That was the iTunes reviews. And I also want to do a shout out to from Twitter @AwkwardCougar, @AwkwardCougar, also known as Wendy M. Lewis. And whenever I'm in the Bay Area, I definitely put her on my shows if I see her out there. She's awesome. Thanks for retweeting the link. Anybody who retweets the link or gives a review gets shout outs. Also shout out to Mike Bagak. Mike Bagak in the house. Rams, where you at, Rams? Rams is always good. And oh gosh, it's on YouTube. Mayweather. No, what? Oh, not Mayweather. Lee Meyerhofer. Lee Meyerhofer is always one of the first persons to give a review on my YouTube channel, which I love. Thank you for doing that, buddy. Oh, on Instagram, I want to give a shout out to Valerie Von Skulls 252. Valerie Von Skulls 252, and also on Instagram, I'm here 3362. I'm here 3362. I also want to do a special shout out to my son, Austin Carter, the little party starter. Love you, buddy. He's great, man. It's his birthday this week. He turns the big 11. That's right, 11 years old. I totally remember being 11 years old. Man, it's like I remember him being 10. He's 10. Now he's going to be 11. Oh my gosh. Dude, he's a much better kid than I was. I went through like a little phase when I was 11, which let's just say it resulted in 30 hours of community service. All right. I'll get into that later. Since my son listens. He's also, I'm very proud of him. Big congratulations to Austin for being elected school president. Yes, school president. You heard it right. The closest I came was I was a campaign manager in 5th grade. for David Delgado, who I think was running for treasurer. And my wife told me, I didn't even know this until our son did this. She was also a campaign manager, and then both of our candidates lost. So we're like, man, what the hell? We're a couple of losers. We're not even like we didn't even run. We were like the campaign managers, and we lost. Gosh. And then our son goes on to win, which is amazing. It's really cool. I told him, I said, don't start no trouble at the elementary school. Don't be like, yeah, the school newspaper is fake news. Yeah. Now, which one of you ladies want to be my Stormy Daniels? All right, Mom and Dad, I got to start a Twitter account. We're going to... I thought, anyways, I'm just really proud of him, and I think it's something cool, I love it. What else can I tell you? I called into a radio show this morning up in Kewin and Modesto because I'm doing the Stanislaus County Fair, I think, or something like that in Turlock. And they asked me about, I guess what they were talking about on the radio this morning was therapy for in-laws. Like if people have a hard time dealing with their in-laws. And they go, did you have? And I said, you know what? I won the in-law lottery. I got really lucky. Rest in peace to both my mother and father-in-law. They were just fantastic. I got so lucky. My mother-in-law, we'd play Scrabble, and she had this wonderful laugh. Her laugh was so funny, and she collected jokes. And she'd always, when I'd go up there, she would tell me jokes. She grew up on, up at the farm near Fresno, and she'd hand me like a bunch of jokes to read, and they were funny, and she just, I don't know. I like Reader's Digest. She'd always have Reader's Digest. She'd give me a subscription every year to Reader's Digest. And we'd play Scrabble. And like I said, she'd let me win. And I didn't even know she was letting me win. I thought she was just, using the words of her surroundings. Like the words she would choose would be like pig, dog, moo, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so smart. And then come to find out, my wife was like, she's like, my mom knows you're very competitive and a poor loser. So yeah, she was letting you win. And I was like, womp, womp. Okay, I guess I'm not that good. Now, my father-in-law was hilarious too. He was born 1920, lived to be 90 years old, and just salt of the earth. And I remember one time he asked me about haircuts. I go, yeah, you like my new haircut? And this is back before I shaved my head. And he's like, how much you pay for that haircut? And I want to say it was probably like, I don't know, like $17 or $18, And he's like, I go, I don't know, maybe like $18. And he's like, boy, they sure saw you coming. I go, well, how much do you pay for your haircut? I think he said like $6. And he also tips them in fruit. Like you'd give them a bowl of plums or some peaches or something. So I got really lucky in that aspect, man. Great family. I hope you guys have good in-laws, and and if you don't, I hope you have earbuds and you can go slip away and listen to a podcast whenever you have to visit them for the holidays. But I talked to I have a couple boxing coaches. I want to give a shout out to Manny, my boxing coach Manny. At the gym. If you guys are in the LA area or the Valley and you want, hit me up and you'll get the Darren Carter Friends Special for Manny. He'll cut the price in half. Anybody that comes to me I don't want to announce the price because maybe some of the other people are paying full price and that wouldn't be a good look. But he'll give you instruction. If you guys follow my Instagram or whatever, you'll see what I'm learning, and it's incredible, man. I got a shout out to anybody who's made a living as a fighter. How do you guys do it? I mean, I go in there and I'm just trying to, jump rope and get in shape. And it's like a series of dance steps that you have to remember, like these combinations. But then as you're dancing, you're getting punched. So you have to I don't know, man. It's crazy. Even the drills, I'm like, all right, I know what they're going to do. And it's still like a little unnerving because you're like, oh, you told me I was supposed to roll, and then that person messes up and they accidentally punch you, and you're like, oh, that sucked. Okay. And the other coach I use is Coach Stan Ward, and he is an old school boxer. He fought in the 70s. He would spar the various heavyweights that were getting ready to fight Muhammad Ali. So he fought like Larry Holmes and Smoking Joe Frazier and a ton of other guys. But anyways, here's a quick little excerpt. I interviewed him just on my phone, And I want you to hear this. This is good advice. Check it out. Here we go. Here with Coach Dan Ward. Coach, let me ask you, if you could give a person only 5 minutes of boxing instruction, what would you tell them?
Keep your hands up, using your straight punches, straight left, straight right, depends on which one's hand you are, and being able to have that mobility. After you strike, move. After you strike, move. Or after he strikes you, you strike back and move. Do not strike and stand still. It's like shooting a gun in battle. You shoot and you stand still, they'll probably shoot you.
They're like, oh, I know where he's at. Yeah.
Hey, that's it.
That's great. I do a joke in my act based on something that you said. I noticed sometimes you would say goodbye to the boxers. You'd be like, all right, now, don't hurt nobody. And then when I would leave, you'd say, be careful. So now at my comedy show, I tell people at the end of the show, I say, that's my time, you guys. Get out there. Don't hurt nobody and be careful.
Amen.
So I want to thank you for that.
No, that's correct. It's one of the things that we do need, especially in today's time and age. People seem to be not as hospitable or as patient. So they seem to go off and they're seeing a lot more shootings and stuff. Try to be a little more gregarious and help people out, okay?
Yeah.
Have life, have joy.
Say goodbye in your special way. Tell us to be careful and not hurt anybody.
Okay, God bless you. Keep your hands up, chin down, and butt off the canvas. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Coach. Man, what a good advice. Good advice, good energy, and that's what I like here on the Pocket Party Podcast, that kind of positive vibe. There's enough negativity out there. We don't need that bullshit in our ear holes. Anywho, we're going to get on with the podcast now. What happened was, with this particular podcast, I had Mike Black call in, and I wanted him to tell a story. And, he's open for Andrew Dice Clay and John Panette and a list of other great comedians. And I really wanted him to tell this one story. I thought maybe it'd take 5 or 10 minutes, but we got to talking, and I'm like, you know what? This is going to be this podcast this week, because we went almost an hour, and he's great. He's got good stories. Now, if you're a new listener to this podcast, I usually have people in the studio with me. So the quality of the sound will be just like this. You can hear us both talking into microphones on the H4n Zoom Pro. Yes. But on this one, he calls in, and so just know that it's a phone call, and your ears will get used to it after a while. And I tried to pull my voice back like this to kind of balance out, so he would be louder and I wouldn't be as loud. And that's it, man. We're going to get into it. The Pocket Party Podcast. Once again, thank you guys for listening. If you want to, let's say you want to, let's say you make a little extra money, right? And you're like, I want to help out the podcast. In the details, there's a little link. And it would be fantastic if you want to throw me like $1 a month or whatever you want to do. And I will give you a shout out, and I'll plug your business and whatever else. And we can get this podcast to the next level. All right. Let's get into it right here, right now.
Pocket Party.
Hey, he's a regular at the Comedy Store. It's Mike Black.
Hi, America.
Oh, and also the Netherlands.
And the Netherlands.
I have a listener who did the Pocket Party theme song for the podcast. He lives in Netherlands. Jim Bryan Music, shout out.
And certain parts of China.
Yes.
They're getting it on accident, and they think it's something else entirely.
Oh, Pocket Party. Mike, where are you from?
I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas, is where I was born, but we only lived there for a couple of years, and I don't remember it at all. And then I moved to Colorado.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah, Aurora, Colorado.
Was that a good move to go from San Antonio to Colorado? Or you don't remember?
Yeah, well, it seemed like it to me. I didn't speak English yet, and I was At the time, it seemed like a good idea.
What language did you speak, or did you speak any languages?
I didn't really speak any languages yet.
The way you said it, I didn't speak English yet. Like, I didn't know what was going to come out. Cambodian, Russian.
Just mostly crying.
Mostly crying. Mama.
Yeah. There's a lot of that.
You've toured with some big comics, man, over the years, and that's, man. I remember when I first remember seeing you was when you were opening for Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a really great time. Just that whole period was a lot of fun because I was opening for him. It was almost like alternating weekends. I would open for him, who was like one of the dirtiest comics in the world. And on the flip side, I would open for John Panette, who was one of the cleanest comics in the world. So I really got a good taste of the lifestyle for the good guy wrestler and bad guy wrestler. Like, whatever you decide you're going to be as a comedian, this is the kind of fan you're going to get, you know?
Oh, yeah. I remember when I would be at the Comedy Store in La Jolla. Oh, this must have been in 95, 96. The manager at that time was like, Dice is crazy. He thinks people are following him. Whatever, you know. But then again, maybe he was attracting those kind of people that are like, the Dice Man. Oh, you know. So I kind of get it. He
definitely has that contingent of fan. He's gotten a lot. I think his fan base has widened a lot since then.
Yeah.
But since his prime, but in his prime, it was really a lot of alpha male sort of guys, fans that would be just as likely to try and fight him as get his autograph, you know?
Exactly. I could totally see that, where they'd be like, oh, Dice, are you thinking too good now, Dice? You thinking too good? Yeah, I could see that. And then if you're not like that to the extreme, like those guys are like that. It's like, yeah.
Right, and those guys typically don't have the same sort of boundaries that most people do. So, like...
They're very handsy, you know, hey, get over here. They want to put you in a headlock and shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they would take photos and do little power moves. Like, they'd try and put their arm over his arm to look like they're dominating him and stuff like that. It's real weird.
That's funny. You know what? I like to put my arm over their arm, and not to dominate them, but because I don't want their sweaty armpits on my shoulder.
Right, yeah. Well, like, we had one where we were doing a show, and this guy was talking to me at the bar after I'd done my set, and he was like, you were really great. I really loved your set. And usually when someone's buttering you up like that, they kind of want something, you know?
Yeah.
And I just kind of got that vibe from the guy. And he was like, you know, I'm you guys' limo driver tomorrow. I'm real excited to be doing that. And the guy was drunk by the time he was talking to me. And I was like, oh, okay, great, cool. And I'm doing the math in my head, and I'm like, well, our flight is at 9 a.m., so he has a couple hours to sober up before he drives us to the airport. And the guy's like, I really I'm a big fan of Dice, and I really want to meet him and, you know, just shake his hand. And I'm thinking, oh, you're such a big fan of his. Why aren't you watching his act right now?
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm not saying it, but like, I'm being pretty polite to the guy. But eventually he realizes that I'm not going to help him in any way on any of that sort of stuff. And so he goes away. But at that particular time, Dice was doing like little meet and greet stuff for, you know, certain fans that had gotten extra fancy tickets would get to meet him and get an autograph sign or whatever. This guy kind of not only wanted to skip ahead of that line, but he didn't want to pay for any autographs or anything like that either, you know, or any merchandise or anything. And so I go over to the club owner and I go, look, I've gotten pretty good at spotting trouble on the road with this show. This guy's going to be a problem later on. And the guy was like, he's a limo driver. I was like, I know who he is. I'm telling you, he's going to start trouble. Just kind of have security ready while Dice is doing the signing thing. And the guy looked at me like I was out of my mind. And I was like, all right. And so I leave it alone. Dice is doing his signings. The guy comes up after everyone. He kind of waits his turn. So I was like, okay, maybe he's chilled out a little bit. And he talks to Dice for a few seconds, and he goes breathing his, drunk breath all over.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'm your limo driver tomorrow morning. And he goes, not like that, you're not. And he goes, what? And he goes, yeah, you need to go home, sober up. I can't. My kids are with us. I can't have you driving.
Right.
And he goes, hey, this isn't part of your show, pal. And he's like,
shit.
yeah, I know. And the guy stands up, and then Dice stands up, and Dice kind of towers over the guy. Everyone forgets he's a big dude.
Yeah.
And he lift weights all the time. He's dying for stuff like this to happen.
Really? That's cool.
And security finally wakes up and comes over and really, for the guy feeling good, pulls him away and is like, we're so sorry, Mr. Dice Clay. We'll get you a different driver, all that stuff. They apologize up and down to him. Nobody says shit to me, but everyone's
yeah, I know.
Oh, we're so sorry, Mr. Dice Clay. This, and they calm the whole thing down. But it's amazing how quickly that can turn, because everyone has this fantasy in their head that you're going to be best friends when you meet, because they've experienced so much of you.
Yeah.
That they assume that you're just going to love them right back.
Dice is going to be a party animal with me. And then when he's like, hey, I got my kids here. I got to get up early. I don't want to miss my flight. And they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I just did
What?
I'm exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone thinks you're a nonstop party animal all the time. It's like, no.
That's why I tell people when they're like, come on, go it. I'm like, listen, I start parties. I don't necessarily attend them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd imagine you must get a ton of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I it's funny the things that go through the years though. Like, see, now I'm talking a lot about my wife and son and the family, and then dieting and exercise. So it kind of like it's a little bit. It leads them know that hey, he's boring. It's okay. Like I'm like I love chess or whatever. Like I let them know like these are my hobbies, so, as opposed to like yeah, like
You're letting him know that you rock responsibly now.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I do. And I'm like, I'm more excited about doing the podcast and my YouTube channel. Those are my hobbies, and playing chess.
Yeah.
And boxing is what I like, but like not really, it's funny. I remember going through that transition with my comedy. I had a couple of really big bits. Like I did this bit about gangland where I would pretend to be like the guy interviewing the gangster and then the gang member, and I'd pull my shirt up and I'd be like, gangland, tell us about your gang. And the guy'd be like, we're not scared of nothing, we run the streets, puto, what's up, orale. So I had that bit mixed with some of those TV shows that I did where like Paul Rodriguez would introduce me to those Latino shows and talking about being a cholo and all that kind of stuff, or trying to be a cholo. So I remember I had fans that were into that world, and then when I started talking about, hey, my wife, we have a 2-year-old or whatever. Now he's gonna be 11 this week, by the way. Shout out to Austin Carter. But I remember I did a show in Stockton, Stockton, California, and this old school Latino guy with like tattoos on his neck. He goes, "Hey man, you need to do more gang stuff." And I was like, no, thank you, but I'm thinking to myself, no, I've done enough gang stuff. Like I need to that's not what I.
Yeah.
It was tough because half of my
about if he lives that long, in about 10 years he'll be like, man, the stuff he's doing now really appeals to me.
Exactly.
He'll be a family man.
I know. I like how he gets down with the chessboard, bro.
Not only do I laugh, but I learned some good parenting tips from this guy.
I know, exactly. I learned proper parenting, bro. You gotta hug your child, man. Let him do the theme song for your podcast. No. Hey, what's a podcast? No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of podcasts, I remember that when somebody ran into me about 10 years ago. Probably closer to 7. And I had a different podcast. And this guy ran into me like at a Home Depot or a Lowe's or something. He was like, hey, I'm a big fan. And just to show you that back then, not a lot of people knew what podcasts were compared to now. And and the guy was like, where are you going to be performing? And I was like, I go, dude, guess what, man? I've got a podcast. I go, take out your phone. And he's like, okay, well, what's that? And I go, I do a show every week And then I realized after about the third or fourth step on he could listen to it, he just glazed over and he was like, okay, what do I do now? I drag the file, then I subscribe, and I...
Oh, yeah, it was also a lot harder to listen to him back then, too.
Yeah.
You know, it was like you literally had to do a lot of different steps. You needed special equipment to do it,
Yeah, I remember I used to drag and drop on my laptop to my iPod and had to plug it in. It's just like, now you just go,
Yeah. Anything that's more than one device, people are out.
Yeah.
Take this and put it in this thing. Nope. We're done.
Yeah. You might get them to do one click, maybe two. Or like, okay, I go here. Okay, now we're good. Yeah, but
it's funny how accurate a lot of that stuff is. Like the different research that they've done, where they're like, if you do a call to action to like, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's like if you do it to 1,000 people, maybe 100 of them will react, and maybe 50 of them will do it right. Will do like what you ask them to do and stuff like that.
I know. It's funny. My friend busts my balls because I'm always like, new podcast up, or do this, or and he's like, I'm like, dude, you understand? When I do that, I might get like 2 or 3 retweets, or I might get like none. It's not like 80 people do it, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, because people are looking at my stuff different times of the day, or maybe they're not that invested, or maybe like a week later. It's like it's a fine line, right?
It's really weird because it's like maybe you'll have fans on Twitter that are different from your fans on Facebook.
Yeah.
So like maybe you've been updating one for a few weeks and forgot about the other, and the other guys they thought you died. They're like, he stopped updating. I guess he died.
Yeah.
They've moved on with their lives.
Yeah.
Are you all sorts of other stuff now?
I mean, how many times have we gone to a town and then with the plane lands and they're like, "Hey, when are you coming to Sacramento?" And you're like, "I was just there. I was just there."
Yeah. I'm trying my best.
Yeah. So that was I get Dice Clay's like fan base was like that. So then like the alternating weekend you'd go out with John Panette, who was like lovable and funny and high energy and talked about food. And what was his fan base like?
His fan base was a lot closer to what I've heard like about the Japanese culture, like where if they invite you, like if I invited you to coffee and we were both Japanese.
Yeah.
The way I would phrase it is, I very humbly request, and please feel free not to do this because I know you would have no interest in doing so. I was going to have coffee anyway. I would love it if you would come, but I understand that I don't want to do anything that would dishonor you in any way. And if you say no, that would probably be for the best anyhow. It's
right,
really
right.
A very like insecure way of phrasing.
Lots of wiggle room to
giving you every excuse to not. Almost encouraging you to not have coffee with me.
Yeah, as opposed to like, hey, fuck nuts, you having coffee with us? Are you too good now? What the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Throwing coffee at you.
Throwing coffee at you.
But like, his fans were very, very sweet and apologetic, and like didn't want to interfere. Like if they'd see us on the street, they would, they'd leave them alone, or they.
My fans leave me alone too. They don't even want to offend me by showing up at my appearances. No, we'll stay home. We're sorry, Darren. We're just
no, we don't want to ruin your night
with our clapping and laughter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we might throw him off. We
might throw him off. Yeah,
but like people would come to invite him to, the whole act is about food, so they'd want to, like, if they had a restaurant or whatever, they'd want to have him over. And they would just be so nice and so polite about the whole thing. And like, and if he did show up, they were just overjoyed and just couldn't be you expect them to be nice to the headliner. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
When you're a feature or an opener, but they were always just so sweet to me too. And I remember doing a show in Arizona where John had already, like, as soon as the show ended, he took a taxi back to the hotel because, to his credit, he'd done an amazing show and got like a standing ovation, but he was cashed out by the end of it, just energy wise. So he took off, and I was hanging around, basically waiting for some food that the club was cooking for me, and then I was going to head back. And this lady taps me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and she goes, Would you and Mr. Panett like to come drinking with us? And I look, and it's 8 other ladies. And I know you're thinking, this is one of those Dear Penthouse sort of stories. Let me shut that down by telling you they were all dressed like Matt Damon.
Was it at least Matt Damon in shorts?
The exact same haircut as Matt Damon. Like,
boy.
Every single one of them. And so I was like, well, John already turned in for the night, but I'd love to come have a drink with you guys. And it was almost adorable. She kind of like leaned in and she goes, just so you know, we're all lesbians. And I was like, okay.
So, she's like, don't try nothing funny there, Mike Black.
Yeah, I was like, you're really knocking me over with this news, but
you're like, your secret is safe with me, Mr. Damon. I mean, yeah.
I hope you're not counting on this secret in town, but yeah, and they took me to this great bar. They bought all the drinks. They wouldn't no matter how much I tried, they refused to let me buy a drink. Eventually I wake up in one of them's lap.
Whoa.
And in the back of a car, and I'm like, what's happening? And they go, oh, we had a lot of Irish car bombs. One of the girls is real into those, and you eventually had too many and passed out. And so we're at Cracker Barrel, and we're getting you breakfast, and then we're going to take you back to your hotel. And it was the nicest experience I've ever had on the road with, like, being out, like, when you actually go and party with people in a town,
Man, that's cool.
And they were just so cool and so, like, couldn't have been sweeter. And every other time has been almost like karmic payback for that one good time. Like,
yeah.
It's always, you always end up in the situation where you're like, what? I thought you said this was a party. Why am I alone in this room, and why do these dudes have masks on?
And, yeah, come hang with us. And the music's always so loud, and you're just like, why am I here? Like 5 minutes into it, you're like, this is a bad idea.
There's some old guy going, let's do cocaine, and then I'll watch you have sex with my wife. Or I could just go back to the hotel, and you guys can do whatever you do.
Yeah.
No.
Do they? I want to get to a great story that I know that you mentioned earlier off air. But before you mentioned Cracker Barrel real quick. I gotta say, whenever because there's no Cracker Barrels in LA. I think the closest one, they just put one in Victorville.
Right.
But when I'm on the road, if I can find a Cracker Barrel, I have to get the pancakes. I love the Cracker Barrel pancakes.
So good.
What is it about those pancakes? They're thin, they're crispy on the edges.
There's a lot of butter in them. They're like half butter.
Oh, well, it's worth it.
Yeah, I don't care if I die specifically of Cracker Barrel pancake overdose. It's worth it. They're good. I'll tell you who else. Waffle House. Everyone loves Waffle House for the waffles and all that stuff. Their hash browns are the best.
Oh, dude, I know. What do you get them smothered, covered, and capped?
Yeah. Oh my god.
They're good.
And they do an amazing grilled cheese too. A lot of times I'll go and I'll just grill cheese and hash browns. it's a perfect meal.
I got to get that. You know what I like? Because I like grilled cheese also, but I'm a big fan of quesadillas. When I go to these different Mexican restaurants all over California, I love getting a quesadilla. And sometimes I don't want them to ruin
You know what?
it. Yeah.
You're not wrong at all. And like now, I was born in Texas. My mom is Mexican. I know Tex-Mex food, but I'll tell you, 99 times out of 100, a good quesadilla will hit the spot. Like of whatever you're kind of in the mood for, try a quesadilla first. And if they can do that and do that well, then branch out from there.
Oh, that's a good idea. There's a place I go to in Burbank, and it's called, let me see if I remember the name of it. It's called Casita, something like Casita del El Carbon or something.
Yes. Yeah,
It's,
they're very good.
It's good. It's on Victory and Magnolia. If you guys ever go there, it's awesome. They got like the salsa bar and everything. And when you walk in, they call you Mijo. Hey, Mijo, how are you? I mean, it's amazing. I love that place. And
You know, Mijo means female marital aid. A lot of people don't know.
Mijo. It's funny. I remember when I was a teenager growing up in Fresno, my friend Danny, his mom kept saying Mijo, Mijo, and then after she left, I made him laugh by going, "Hey, what kind of hoe was she calling you?" Mijo. But yeah, I got the other day. I got the quesadilla, and they go, "What kind of meat?" And I thought, you know what? I'll just get chicken. Why not? I got to be honest. It was really good. A chicken quesadilla, and then on top of it, I got a chicken burrito, and then they give you all the chips. But honestly, I didn't need to even get the burrito. After the quesadilla, it was good enough.
Oh yeah, I make that mistake all the time. I'm a sucker for a good like just refried beans, bean and cheese burrito.
Dude, I was just gonna say that. That's my second choice. I always get the bean and cheese burrito. It's like wherever I go, I try to
get a quesadilla, and then I'll do that. I'll order the bean and cheese burrito. But I'll tell you something; those microwave fantastically. And they're also, if you have, I'm a bachelor, you probably have an actual oven, but if you have like a toaster oven or something, they're great in those. You just wrap them in tinfoil so that the tortilla stays kind of moist, you know?
Yeah.
Wrap them up good in tinfoil, put them in the toaster oven, about like 20 minutes on 350, somewhere around there, and it's going to come out great.
Do you like Sharky's? You ever been to Sharky's?
Yeah, they're all right.
Yeah, that's more like, it's good if you're like, okay, I want to eat healthy and then I want to have Mexican food, but that's where you go if you want to have like broccoli and like, you know.
There are a lot of places that are real into like the pico de gallo side of it and the cilantro side of it.
Yeah.
Like more than anything else almost. Like that's the part they care about. I like places where if the refried beans are good, I'm halfway happy. You know what I mean?
Off the top of your head, can you think of a couple places around LA where people might want to go if they want like a good bean and cheese burrito?
Dos Burrito on Hollywood Boulevard is the best. Best.
Dos Burrito, Hollywood Boulevard. Hollywood and what? What's it near?
I don't know because they moved. They were right next to the that big theater on Hollywood.
Okay.
The one where they play The Lion King and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, by Jimmy Kimmel, by Hooters, over there by the Hollywood Walk of Fame area, Man's Chinese Theater.
No. The one where like Lion King the musical.
Oh,
is it the Pantages?
Isn't that the Pantages? Oh, okay.
So they were down there near that, and now I would say they're kind of in the middle between those two, between like.
I'll look it up. Dos Burritos.
And those. But it's Dos Burrito. It's not a real big place, and it's very authentic Mexican food. But they do the best by far bean and cheese burrito because they do them. You know who recommended it to me the first time? You remember Chewy at the Comedy Store that used to run the parking lot?
Yeah, Chewy.
That was the guy who told me to go there. He was like, they do non-gassy beans there, bro. And I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, they do them old school style where they cut an onion in half and put it at the bottom and it makes them less gassy. And I was like, I got to try this.
Smart.
And
funny.
And I went there and they're great. They do 2 different sauces when they smother them. Get both sauces.
Okay.
And it's great. That would be my big recommendation.
I'm going to try that. I got a funny story about Chewy. So when I moved to LA, this my old car, my very first car that I paid where I was like, yes, my first real car, I would say. Every other car broke down and was a piece of POS. My first time I was able to afford a Honda, because all I said is I wanted just to afford a Honda or a Toyota. No more car problems. I'm tired of it. So I had now this would have been in 95, 96, but I had an 84 Honda, and I loved that car, and I would drive to the Comedy Store parking lot. But for some reason, whenever I would turn the engine off and then you turn the engine back on, it would reset all my radio stations. So, and it would do that. So it would reset. There was probably a short somewhere, but I remember. So it'd restart, and it would go directly to a Spanish station. And Chewy one time thought he goes, "Hey man, I get your joke, man. You're fucking with me." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're always putting it on that Mexican channel." I go, "Dude, that's just the way and I had to physically show him that I wasn't trying to joke with him, and he thought I was like, "Hey, let me help Chewy out and put it on something in Espanol."
Yeah, Chewy was a interesting guy.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, let's leave it at that.
He was the original party starter.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Before I let you go, and I really appreciate you calling in. And
absolutely, wouldn't miss it.
If you could talk a little bit louder, I know we're trying to do this thing where I can make phone calls, but
sure.
I know. Okay, on the podcast, I've talked in the past about not being on my phone and going for these walks and looking down and finding money. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Like if you look around and don't look on your phone, you'll find money. If you go somewhere other than a treadmill, you'll find money. And people have they've sent in photos and pictures to the Pocket Party podcast. Like, hey, here's like my one buddy, the guy who did the theme song for the Pocket Party. The other theme song, his name is Curtis Marsh. Curtis, what he'll do is he'll save every coin, every dollar, and at the end of the year, he'll put it on a piece of paper, count it up, and put like, in this year, I found $218 or whatever it is. Yeah. So you found a check.
Right. It was not for very much money, to be fair. It was like $11 or something like that.
Well, thanks for calling in, Mike. No, I'm just kidding. No.
But it had the latest, name and address and all that stuff on it. And I was like, what if this $11 is like the difference, like between rent or something like that,
Absolutely.
And I saw in there that she was like a college student. And I was like, I know for a fact it might be the difference between rent and not having rent when you're a college student, And so I just wrote a quick little note saying, I found this in the parking lot, maybe you already did the phone deposit or something, but I thought just in case I should send it to you. Sent it to her, didn't think, forgot about it actually. And then I was checking my mail the other day and I'd got like a little small package in the box. And so there was a bunch of mail in there and I cleaned most of it out. And then I noticed, and I don't know exactly how I noticed it, but one piece had like kind of stuck to the roof of the box. Mm-hmm. And so I almost missed it. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And so I pull it out and it's a name that I kind of recognize. And I'm like, I don't know this person, but I've heard this name before. And so I open it up and it's this thank you letter. Saying,
I have the thank you letter. You took a photo of it. Can I read it?
Sure.
Okay. Sure. First of all, it looks like they sent a thank you card, and inside the card it says, "Dear Mr. Black, thank you so much for taking the time to mail back my check. I suspect it fell out of my backpack when I was rummaging for my keys. Since moving to LA, I've been finding this city to be big and fairly cold. So when you took the time to mail back my check, I was really touched. Thank you." Oh.
Yeah, I thought it was so cool that I posted it on Facebook, and I think a lot of people thought I was like doing it to be like, look how awesome I am. I mailed a check back or whatever. But what I was really taken with was what she wrote, because I was like, I thought about it. I was like, I've lived here half my life now in LA, and I've been through every part of this story. Like, I've been someone who lost money. I've been someone who, was struggling and lost something important. and in a city that I thought, oh, everyone here kind of sucks, like for a while, when you, at least that first year, when you're first acclimating, it feels like everyone's just against you and just wants you to leave, and then like I remember on Hollywood Boulevard, I remember just wanting to go to a mall, and a guy who literally had a feather in his cap. I was like, excuse me, I don't know anyone and I'm real new here. Do you happen to know where a mall is? And he was like, oh, you want to go to the Beverly Center, blah, blah, blah. And he was just so nice and gave me all these great directions and everything. And I was like, thank God. I was like so appreciative that this guy stopped to tell me where the damn mall was. It seemed like such a little thing, but I like shook his hand like a tourist almost, like, oh, thank you so much. And he was like, oh, certainly, and wandered off, wherever guys with feathers in their caps go. And
I wonder if he called it macaroni. No.
And so I don't know. I just thought the whole thing was kind of neat,
Dude, it's the best. You know what? I'll tell a little story because that reminded me of like last week, and I'll blatantly say this. Like I felt like I used to be a lot more of like that Leave It to Beaver, because I had friends that would be like, dude, you're too nice, you're so nice. But I think it's just, I felt like it was almost like an OCD thing where I'm like, I have to do it. If I don't do it, it's just not the right thing. I got to do this thing that's the right thing to do. But I got to be honest, it's like, it's selfish because it's selfish for me because it makes me feel good, like it feels good, right? When you saw that check and you did the right thing, you're like, God, I feel good. Like this is, yes.
Well, it felt good. It felt like more like it would be more of a hassle to try identity theft.
Yeah, that's true too.
It'd be really hard to pull off me being a young female college student. I have to get away from it, so I may as well send it back.
So the other day I was at the gas station and this lady, older lady with an older car, and it turns out, come to find out, she's 96 years old. Just picture Betty White, but with like maybe like a kind of a red tint to her hair. But like I mean, we're talking immaculate, like oversized sunglasses, the necklace, the whole nine. The only thing was the car was dirty and it was an older car. But there was a lady that works for the gas station that was at the pump trying to run her credit card and help her out. But she had a very thick, I want to say Indian accent. And I could tell the older lady was a white lady. I could tell she was older plus having trouble understanding. So I thought, you know what, let me stop what I'm doing and come help them. And because the Indian lady would be like, credit, she would try to say credit or debit. And she'd be credit or debit, credit, and she was like, it's a credit card. So I was like, I go, it's a credit card. Just try the credit. And then I was talking to the older lady and she was saying that she said that her son, she has 4 sons. She said that they usually help her get the gas, but they weren't available that day. And I was like, oh, okay. So as we were talking and the gas started, the credit card worked, I thought, you know what? Her windshield is completely filthy, the front. I'm going to help her out. So I cleaned her windshield, the front, and I cleaned the back. And the attendant was done and went back inside. And the lady, she actually opened up her wallet and offered me a couple dollars. I said, no, thank you. I said, I just do it to make me feel good. I love just helping people, and it's no problem. And she's like, oh, you remind me of my son. And that's when we got to talk. And I said, I said, you're so lucky to have it. And she goes, yes, I have 4 boys. And I go, I got a son too. And I go, I love being a dad. I go, it's the best, isn't it? And she's like, it certainly is. She goes, I'm 96 years old. And then I talked to her for a little bit. She said she lived in the Hollywood Hills area, and she moved here from Canada in 1960. And I don't know, it was really just a sweet interaction. And I didn't want anything from her. I just loved this talking to somebody like that. And like, it made me feel good to help her out. And what?
That is cool when you think about like all that she has seen. Like she's watched this city grow for that long.
I know.
That is amazing.
And also, I'm tired of people like wanting to do something and then want something in return. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I don't know if I don't think it's like that in other parts of the country, but I definitely notice like I've been, with my wife at Target or Vons or one of these, and somebody will maybe strike up a conversation with you. and then you're thinking this is pretty cool, and then they'll be like, hey, have you ever thought of your insurance company, and they're trying to sell you something, you know?
Yeah, a lot of like fake friend sort of stuff like that happens. Like it's a weird guerrilla marketing tactic now, where like people will come up, especially I'm sure it happens when you're alone more often. They really tend to target single guys, you know, with like spokesmodels will just come. And like now, anytime like an extremely gorgeous woman comes and talks to me, it's like, oh, she's selling something. She is not just interested in talking to me. That's not happening. Anyone who's seen my car is like, nope, that would not happen.
I think the same thing when I get like a friend request on something. I'm just like, I just delete it. I'm like, no, it's something. It's bullshit, you know. It's
100% that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but you were talking about the translation difference, and it reminded me of my grandma who passed away a couple years back. But one of our last phone conversations we had, she's kind of old Mexican, and so she speaks English, but it's pretty heavy accent. And at the end of the phone call, she said a Spanish word that I'd never heard before, te quedas. And I was like, come again, Grandma? And she goes, te quedas. And I'm like, I don't know that word. Te quedas. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm just not, I don't speak Spanish, right? And she goes, mijo, te quedas.
Oh, take it easy. Take it easy. Take it easy. Take it easy.
Grandma, don't get worked up. Take it easy.
Take it easy. That's hilarious. Take it easy. Take it easy.
It really sounded like some word I'd never heard before. I was like,
you know what? I love that there was that Tom Waits song that you were telling me about.
Oh, it was like a little story that he tells between songs. Yeah. Did you get to?
I did. I read the lyrics. It's so funny. Here's what it is. It was like 2 a.m, I think, when I saw that message, and I thought, oh, let me go to sleep, but I want to read the lyrics. So I read the lyrics, and then this morning I woke up and I'm like, oh, let me hear that song, and I realized like, oh, it's spoken word.
Yeah. Like, this song doesn't rhyme.
I know. I was like, oh, this will be interesting. Yeah. But you know what's interesting about that? That happened in a real life experience with me. I was in an audition maybe about 10 years ago, and I'll never forget, it was a commercial audition, which commercial auditions are interesting because a lot of people have other jobs, and then they're able to break away from their regular job and go do a quick commercial audition. And so there was an older couple, and they told me they lived in, I want to say they lived in a senior center for retired actors.
Oh, okay.
Something, I think that might be out in Thousand Oaks or Woodland Hills or something. And the lady was dressed real nice, and she was just kept staring at me, and she told me, this is so funny because it's like that, it's a little bit like that Tom Waits song, but not really. But yeah. And she goes, I just have to say, you remind me so much of my son. And I was like, oh, you know. And she was an older lady, and then I think her son had passed away, I know, and it was interesting because I was like, you know, I remember I just got back to town that day, so I'm like, boom, audition, okay, like, you know, you got to get back into that mindset of auditioning again. And then when she said that just kind of took me out of the show business game, and I just thought, man, this poor woman, like, that's so sad to like lose your child. And then we were talking for a little bit, and then I went into my audition. I came out of my audition. She was still there, and I said, hey, it was nice meeting you. And she goes, I don't want this to sound strange, but could I give you a hug goodbye? And I said, sure. And she gave me a hug goodbye, and it made both of us feel good. And I could only imagine what it made her feel like, you know, like for that moment, you know, like maybe that was her son. And then I went to my car, and that was it. And I hadn't thought about it until you sent me that Tom Waits song.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a story that's not quite as cool, but at a friend's wedding, I had to make a toast, and so I'm making my toast, and you know, being a comedian, you kind of want to represent, you know, And so I was getting a lot of laughs while I was doing my toast, and I closed pretty strong. And then later on at a reception, this old lady comes up to me and she goes, "Excuse me, you were very, very funny." And I was like, "Oh, thank you very much." She goes, "I have a local public access show, but I've had the mayor on, and I've had some great guests from around town, impresarios, restaurateurs, what have you. Would you have any interest in doing my public access show?"
Oh,
and I said, "Oh, I would love to." I was like, "I'm in town for the next 4 days. I really don't have anything to do. Let me get your email and we'll get it all set up." And she pats me on the shoulder and she goes, "I don't have a show, you silly goose." And then she wandered off.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I was like, this lady is awesome.
Now I would have been thinking the whole time, like, I really don't want to do it, but
Yeah, well, I was thinking that. I was actually thinking the exact same thing. I really don't want to do it, but who's going to say no to a 90-year-old lady?
yeah, exactly. What, you think you're better than the mayor?
Yeah, if she's had the mayor on, who am I to say no?
That's good, man. That was good for both of you guys that it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, "I got him."
Yeah.
I love thinking that she's going around the whole town doing that to everybody.
That's so funny. Mike, you're great, man. I love hearing you on another podcast, and I love hanging. Every time I see you, it makes me feel good. Oh, man. I remember. Man,
Same here for the most part.
Thank you. I don't want to end sad. I like to end with a good laugh, but I just remembered that the night that one of my comedy heroes, Robin Williams, passed away, I had to go. I had a set scheduled at the Laugh Factory, and I went there, and then I remember I went to the Comedy Store, and I saw your set that night, and I remember it was strange at the Laugh Factory. I'd never seen it leak. For some reason, it was raining, I guess, that night or something. But I think, was it raining? I don't remember. But I just remember it was leaking onto the stage, and they had to have buckets on the stage at the Laugh Factory. And I remember like trying to do a set because all the comics were just shooken. Like, what do you do? It's like it was very
almost like the club was crying.
Yeah, it was like the building itself was like in mourning. It was crazy. I know that sounds kind of but that's what it felt like. It felt like this is so weird. And I remember going down to the Comedy Store and. What's it like to do a set that night? Do you remember what you said or any of the way you felt? Or
God, I felt so cheated, and sad and angry, and because he was what got me into this more than anything.
Yeah,
I would watch Mork and Mindy as a kid. And I remember vividly my brother asking me one day, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And pointing at him and going, "I want to do that."
Yeah.
And I got to meet him very, very, very briefly. Bobcat Goldthwait did a screening of Shakes the Clown at the Silent Movie Theater. And he has a cameo in it, and he came by to support. And this was just after his heart attack. And he was there, and he was coming up the aisle. I was in the last row, and I see him, and I just wanted to stop him and tell him, "You're the reason I'm doing this." And I go, "Mr. Williams," and it sounded like he didn't hear me, and he made it out of the lobby, and then he poked his head back in, and he goes, "Yeah," and I go, "Oh," and then the lights blacked out in the theater, and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and he went, "Oh, okay." And then he went away, and that was it. And I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll get him next time." And of course, there was no next time,
Yeah. I mean, same thing here. I was a little kid, and I remember Robin Williams. I loved Mork and Mindy, and shout about Earth to me, all that. I loved it. Yeah. And there'd be the poster at this one apartment complex. We'd walk past it to elementary school, and there'd be a life-size Mork was in the window of this apartment, and it would look like his eyes were following you as you walked right by it. It was amazing. It was like a optical illusion. And I got to meet Robin Williams twice in my life. Once when I was 22 at the Holy City Zoo in San Francisco, and I was just nervous. Somebody goes, "Robin Williams is here," and he was right outside the door. And I remember he kind of had his arms crossed a little bit, like it was cold. And I remember I walked out there, and he looked at me, and I go, it's cold out here. That's all I could say was, it's cold out here. And he kind of rubbed his arms and goes, oh, it is cold. Oh. And then he goes, I'm going back inside. And that was it. And then the second time I met him was at the Hollywood Improv in the hallway. And he goes, he was very nice. And I think he said something. He said, do you mind if I go next? I have to be, do you mind? I'm like, oh, no, man, it'd be an honor. That's great. And that's all. It was just like a pleasantry and, that kind of thing. But man, I was hoping it was a hoax when I read it on Twitter and I got the email from, the text messages from everybody. I was hoping it was a hoax.
Yeah, I got a lot of texts from everybody. It seemed like it's weird about bad news. Everyone wants to be the bearer of bad news now.
I know.
Like they want to be the first one to let you know. But
do you remember what you said at the Comedy Store that night? I kind of do. I remember. I think I remember something you said that night.
What did I say?
Something about this is a circus and we're all clowns and now the head clown or something like that.
Oh yeah, I said it when I was clearly no one was doing well that night. Like you're not gonna get big laughs, and I was like, this is kind of like performing in a circus when the head clown has just died.
Yeah, under the big top, and if he, because we were,
where it was like it wasn't so much like making fun of him, it was making fun of the absurdity of the situation.
Yeah, the absurdity of he has the TV series, he's had the movies, he's had the money, he's had the fame, and we're all trying to get that, and we're like, if he, man, what the fuck, what chance?
We're here doing this, and the thing is like, what the audience doesn't understand is this is how we grieve. This is we grieve by putting on a show.
I know.
But yeah, it was.
I always ask my guests before we leave if there's I figure anybody, especially in this business, who's been alive long enough and had many experiences, I always ask them for words of wisdom. Anything they've learned along the way that they'd like to pass. It could be comical, it could be serious. Any words of wisdom or something you'd like to share with our the listeners here at the Pocket Party Podcast.
Whatever business you venture into, do one at a time. Don't do a self-defense / lawn and ornament surplus store or something like that. Just focus on one or the other. Either you teach self-defense or you sell lawn ornaments. Don't do both.
Where does this come from? Do you have a more specific reason? Is there something is it for people that half-ass being a comedian? Is that kind of what you're thinking of?
Yeah, just do one thing or the other, but don't do both. I had toyed with the idea of teaching a self-defense class myself, and while I was toying with that idea, I saw, because it was Halloween, they had those skeleton pelicans for the lawn. Yeah. And I was like, I'd make a killing if I sold those. And then for a brief moment, I thought, why not do both? And then I thought about it really hard, and I thought, that's why. Because you'd have all your students kicking zombie pelicans.
Yeah.
Just not a good look.
I know. I think it's like, you got to put your.
I don't know self-defense, so
and
that would have hurt the business quite a bit.
I think nowadays, like with show business, we're able to do a couple things, but they both fuel each other, like podcasting and stand-up. Like it's so similar, it helps one another. You know what I mean? I've
noticed there are a lot of opportunities to do a lot of work in entertainment, so long as you don't mind that they don't pay. There are a lot of ways to do things that have no money under them,
Right. Yeah. I have a friend, he had like 3 things he's good at, and he's like, I can't help it that all 3 things, none of them make money. It's like, He's like, because one day he was just venting. He was like, people always brag about, I do this or I do that, and I'm so rich. He's like, yeah, because there's a bunch of you guys that can do that. He's like, the 3 things I'm good. One of them was like, I think like cello, like he's like plays the viola or something, or I don't know. It was one of those things. Unless he's like one of the best in the world, he's probably not going to make too much money being a fiddle player, like.
Right.
And
yeah, and I think there's a lot of things like that we do, but we just have a lot of faux opportunities, that to do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's like, very, very little of it pays. Like, if you really just want to be in a bunch of movies, you can do that tomorrow.
I know. I thought about that too. Like, that's another thing. We're like, I want to be in all these movies and be, there's ways to get 1-line, 5-line extras. I mean, it's like, you're sitting around for 16 hours a day and then you're like, yeah, whatever. There's the back of my head.
Being fed cheese nips and Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Welcome to showbiz,
getting paid like $50 at the end of the week.
Yeah. Like, what's that thing where there's a guy like, there's like some story where like the circus goes to, and as the circus is leaving town, the very last one is the guy shoveling elephant manure, and he's like, "Well, I'm in showbiz."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
He's like, "Check out my podcast, Elephant Dung." Yeah. Anyways,
that probably has more listeners than my podcast.
Speaking of your podcast, what would you like to tell us? Where can people find you? What's happening, Mike?
Well, I'm the announcer and co-host for Stephen Glickman's The Nighttime Show. And that is a podcast, I wouldn't say weekly, but it's very often. And then we do a live show at the Improv once a month. And we have all sorts of celebrity guests. We just did our last one. We had Fred Willard and Carney Wilson. It was a great big show. And it was a lot of fun. And then I also do one with my pal Andrew DeWitt called The Power Pals. And we have Avery Faith on there, who's a cosplayer. And it's basically just geeks geeking out. But that one is very not safe for work. It starts out very innocent and then gets really raunchy. So if you listen at work, put some headphones on for that. And we've celebrated over 100 episodes of both of those. So
nice.
There's plenty to listen to if you're into it.
That's so cool. Do you put yours up on YouTube?
When we have video, like most of these are audio podcasts, but like the Nighttime Show, whenever we do the improv shows, those we put at least a few video clips, if not the whole thing.
Mike, on Instagram, where can we find you?
At Mike Black Attack. And that's a little bit comedy, but mostly it's just me messing around with action figures and stuff.
I love it, man. Mike, thanks for calling in. It was great to have you, and I hope to see you around soon. And thank you for everything, man. I'm gonna go check out the Dos. Is it Dos Burritos?
Dos Burritos, yeah.
God, I'm hungry right now. Okay.
Now I am too. Damn it.
I know. Damn it. You're the best, Mike. Talk to you soon.
All right. You too. Thanks, Darren.
Thank you,
night.
Bye. Bye. Well, look at you. You made it all the way through. Thank you very much for doing that. While you're at it, can you do me a favor and tweet that link? It's the pinned tweet on my Twitter account. And just let people know about this podcast. Give it 5 stars and a review on iTunes, and I'll give you a shout out. And if anything, just tell a friend. Tell a friend. Say, hey, listen to this cool Pocket Party podcast. It's positive, it's inspirational, it's motivational, and hopefully we made you laugh at least a couple times throughout this episode. All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Remember, get out there and don't hurt nobody. Don't hurt nobody. And then I messed up. Hold on. Let me say it again. All right. When the boxers leave the boxing gym, here's what he says. All right, now, don't hurt nobody. Okay, we'll see. All right, don't hurt nobody. And then when I leave, be careful. All right, guys, get out there. Don't hurt nobody and be careful.
Everybody listen to Darren Carter. We all know he's the party starter. So if you want to listen to a podcast for free, then listen to the Pocket Party.